So, all semester long, we've been working with quadratic equations. We've been working with other things too, but we've been working with quadratic equations a whole bunch. And who can tell me what the standard form of a quadratic equation is? Standard form of a quadratic equation.
A plus AB
Plus x equals minus b.
Okay, you're thinking the quadratic formula. I'm asking for standard form of a quadratic equation.
Ax square plus bx plus c equals 0.
Okay, standard form of a quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We've been working with that all semester long. Okay? Up until now, we have had one method for how to solve this. Okay? Who can tell me what that method is? Either its name or how we do it. Okay? It's called the zero factor property, where we factor and set each of those factors equal to 0, right? Okay? Make sense?
Yes.
All right. So in this unit, unit 4, okay, or whatever unit it turns out to be in the future, okay, so for this unit, we are going to learn 2 more methods for how to solve a quadratic equation, okay? The second method in this unit you will learn is called the quadratic formula. And the third method, the first method that you'll learn in this unit, is called the square root property method. Okay, so now listen real closely. Whenever you are given a choice of how to solve a quadratic equation, always try factoring first, because that's the easiest. Okay? Always try factoring first. If factoring does not work, then use the quadratic formula. Only use the square root property method if it's already in the perfect format. And the format for a square root property method is something like m squared equals a number, or a perfect square trinomial equals some number, okay? If it's already in this format, then use the square root property method. Okay, I'm going to say this one more time. Always, always, always try factoring first. If that doesn't work, use the quadratic formula. Only use the square root property method if it's already in the perfect format to do that. Or very close, yes?
What's the quadratic formula?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you that. You'll get to it when you get to that
Okay.
unit. It's really easy,
Okay.
which is why everybody likes it. Okay? But you'll get there. Okay? Because that's not what we're going to focus on here today. All right? What we are going to focus on is that periodically you are told that you have to solve it using the quadratic formula. Excuse me. Using the square root property method. Okay? And it's in this format. It is not in this format. Okay? So then we have something called completing the square. Okay? Now, I don't know if I should put this on screen. Every book and every teacher says that this is a fourth method for how to solve. But this is not a method, guys. Understand, this is not a method. All this completing the square does for us is force this guy into looking like this so we can use the square root property method. So when you hear that in the future, just go, yeah, yeah, whatever, and then just do it, okay? And the only time we ever want to complete the square is if we are told we have to use the square root property method, and it doesn't look like this. It looks like this, okay? However, just so you know, in the future, it's very important you know how to do this, because you will need it when you're doing things in 121 with circles, or in trigonometry with circles and stuff like that, and some other times where you're going to have to do a form of completing the square. So we really do need to learn it, okay? So what we are going to focus on right now is this completing the square, how that works, okay? And I've got 4 examples that we're going to do together, and then I've got 1 for you guys to try on your own. All right. So when I look at this, I'm looking to see if these 3 are a perfect square trinomial, because I need it to look like this. Okay? And the first thing I'm going to look at is this guy. Because what does this have to be in a perfect square trinomial? Plus. This has to be a plus in the perfect square trinomial. Not only that, I can't get an even square root of 10. So this guy is my problem. Okay? So if I could get rid of him and put something else in there, I could make this be a perfect square trinomial. So I am going to set up 2 steps that I do at the exact same time. Okay? So always set up these 2 steps with the blanks, and then go from there. So I'm going to use different colors here. So first step is I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to put a plus here because in a perfect square trinomial, this is always plus. And then a blank. I'm moving this guy to the other side. Now, when I put this in, when I put something there, it's never been there in this equation before, which means I just unbalanced my equation. So in order to rebalance it, I better put the exact same thing over here. Make sense? Okay? And then my second step is going to be starting to put it into, to get it into this perfect square trinomial format. Okay? So minus, because this guy's minus. All right. So always set these 2 steps up. Make sure you've got the 4 blanks. We are going to fill these blanks in, this one first, then this one, then this one, and then this one. Okay? Okay, all right. So here's how we do this. Never with signs, guys. We've already taken care of signs. So you always just do this only with the number. So you take this number and divide it by 2, and that answer goes here. Now listen carefully to what I'm going to say. I am not dividing this guy by 2 because he's 2. I'm dividing him by 2 because whatever he is, I divide him by 2. Because remember, in a perfect square trinomial, this is a perfect square trinomial, plus or minus, one or the other, not both, whichever is in there, okay? But our middle term is 2 times x times y. Well, I'm undoing that by dividing by the 2, okay? Make sense? So what's 2 divided by 2? 1. That goes here. Now what I do is take this and I square it, and that answer goes here. So what goes there now? 1, because 1 squared is 1. And whatever this is just automatically goes right over here. Okay, so what goes there?
1.
1. Okay, to rebalance my equation. And then all I have to do here is whatever this is telling me to do, and that answer goes right here. So 10 plus 1 is 11. Okay? Now, you guys won't have to rewrite this, and we won't in the next examples, but I'm going to rewrite this right now so that you can see that it's in the proper format. This is what we have now. Does this look like this? Okay. So now I'm ready to use the square root property method. I'm trying to get rid of this 2. And so this is being squared, so the opposite of that is square root. So I'm going to take the square root of this, because when this and this match, this falls out as our answer, okay? Now, when I do it on the other side, because this is an even index, I have to account for both positive and negative, because 2 negatives multiplied together is positive. So it could be either one. So plus or minus square root of 11. Okay? So now this falls out as my answer. And can I do anything with the square root of 11?
No.
No. So all I need to do now is get the x by itself. So that just means adding the 1. Always take him and push him up between the equals and the plus or minus. Okay? And so then I get x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 11. Please write it like this, not like the book does. Okay? And this is 2 answers. I'm expecting 2 answers. X equals 1 plus the square root of 11, and x equals 1 minus the square root of 11. Okay? Any questions on that?
No.
All right. Now, listen carefully to what I have to say here. Is everybody listening?
Yes.
Okay. So, when I am going to complete a square, before I set up my 2 steps, the squared term must have a 1 coefficient. Okay? So if this has a number in front of it, anything besides 1, then you're going to have to divide this guy by whatever that number is. And if you divide him by that, then you need to divide him by that, and him, and him. Okay? After you've done that, then rewrite what you have, then set up your 2 steps. You okay with that? You sure? Okay. In this case, I don't have to because he's already a 1. Thank gosh. Okay? All right. So once again, this is not a perfect square trinomial. Okay? So I'm going to set up my 2 steps, put him on the other side. So m squared minus 4m plus, because in a perfect square trinomial, it's always plus. And then my second step, minus, because this guy's minus. All right. Which blank do I fill in first? This one. Okay? What goes here?
So since we have to divide 4 by 2 is 2.
2. Okay? 4 divided by 2 is 2.
2.
Okay?
Quick question.
Yes.
So we always going to divide it by 2? Or?
Always going to divide it by 2. No matter who he is, he gets divided by 2. Okay? And which is the next blank I'm going to fill in? This one? Okay. What goes here? 4. Because I take this guy and square him. Then this one's next. Okay. 4. And what goes here then? 36. All right. So now we're ready to use the square root property method. So I'll take the square root of this plus or minus the square root of this. Okay? And so now I have, everybody okay with that?
Yep.
What's the next thing I'm going to do?
Get rid of the 2.
Oh,
You
no.
have to split it.
Okay? If I do that, I have no idea what to do with him once he's there. So anytime you get a whole number over here, so there's not a radical sign and there's not a 9, you've got the whole number, split it out right then and there. Make it into 2 equations. M minus 2 equals positive 6, and M minus 2 equals negative 6. Make sense? Okay? And now we can go ahead and finish this up. And then write your final answer like this, please, not like the book does. All right, once again, I look at this, I say, well, it's not a perfect square trinomial. Okay? So I'm going to set up my 2 steps. Plus, because that guy's plus. All right. What goes here? Okay. What do you think? Okay. 3 halves. Do not let it bother you if it doesn't divide evenly by 2. Just take whatever this is, make that be your numerator, and 2 is your denominator. Do not write it in mixed number form, so 1 and 1/2 here, or in decimal form, so 1.5. That will make your lives much more difficult. Okay? Always leave it in fraction form. Okay? So what goes here now? 9/4. Again, don't make this any harder than it is. What's 3 squared? 9. And what's 2 squared? 4. Okay? And what goes here? 9/4. And what goes here? Adding fractions. So lowest common denominator. There we go. So this is really like over 1. So that becomes 4/4. So 13/4. Okay? Make sense? All right. Now, I am going to give you guys 2 pieces of advice, which nobody in all the years I've been doing this takes it right off the bat yet. Okay? But please do this and listen to it. Here's the first piece of advice. When you have a fraction, always split it up into the numerator and denominator. It will help you so much to be able to see it and know what to do with it. Okay? And the second piece of advice is always, always do everything, absolutely every possible thing that you can do over here before you bring this up and put it in here. Okay? So I'm going to say those 2 pieces of advice again. Whenever you have a fraction here, always write it separately, numerator and denominator. And always do everything that you can on this side before you bring this guy up in here. Okay? So, can I do anything with the square root of 13?
No.
Okay. What about the square root of 4? 2. And now, is there anything else I can do here? Okay, so now, and remember, always push him up between the equals and the plus and minus. And these already have common denominators. And so I will write it over that one common denominator. It must always be written over one common denominator, if there is a denominator.
Where did the negative sign come from?
How do I get that to the other side?
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay? Yep. He went across the equal sign, so his sign had to change. Okay. So, first of all, I look at this. Oh, maybe this is a perfect square trinomial. So, first I'm going to check that. Because if it is, then put it into the perfect square trinomial and you're ready to go right away. And it's going to be really easy because it's equals 0. You don't have anything else there. So what's the even square root of t squared? T. And what's the even square root of 0? Of 10? What's 5 times 5? Oh, that didn't work. What's the even square root of 10? There isn't one. So this is not a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to set up my 2 steps plus, not because this guy's plus, but because in a perfect square trinomial, this guy is always plus. How did this guy end up being minus? Because I moved him over, okay? Minus because this guy's minus. Only I wrote it incorrectly. Always check to make sure you've written the original problem correctly. Okay, so what goes here, guys? 6 divided by 2 is 3.
Oh, sorry.
And what goes here?
It's 9.
Okay. And here? And what goes here? Oh, nice. Most of the time I get 19 or negative 19. Okay. Once in a while I get 1, but not negative 1. Good for you, Jayla. Okay, so now I'm ready to use the square root property method. And what do I have now? T plus 3 equals?
Minus the imaginary number, which is I.
Plus or minus I. You okay with that, Jayla? Because, oops, that's 1. I take out the I, and now, what's the square root of 1? What's the square root of 1? 1. And what's 1 times I? Just I. Okay? Now there's nothing more I can do over here, so again I just push this up between the equals and the plus or minus, and I get this. Write it like this, not like the book does. Okay? Does this make sense?
Makes sense?
Any questions? All right, I am going to give you one that I want you to try. And then bring me the answer in class, and we'll see how well you did. So here's the one for you guys to do at home. Or you can get together and do it in class with fellow classmates. But I need you definitely to do this and bring it to me to see your answer. Okay?
Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much.